What if the soul of Europe wasn't Paris or Berlin, but Lisbon? In 2025, Portugal isn't just surviving, it's thriving quietly, defiantly, and maybe, just maybe, it holds the secret to Europe's next era. In a fractured world chasing shadows of itself, one nation quietly reclaims its soul. Portugal, a name whispered with the wind across the Atlantic. Once the edge of the known world, now a beacon of quiet power, rebirth, and purpose. In 2025, Portugal stands at a remarkable intersection of the past and the possible. A country that once ruled empires now chooses to rule with culture, climate action, and community. Why does this story matter? Because while the world spins in chaos, wars, inflation, AI disruption, Portugal finds a way to breathe, to sing, to play, to hope. This is not a travel brochure. This is not a fantasy. This is the story of a people who carry saudade in their veins, a longing that gives them strength, not sorrow. From the cobblestones of Alfama to the innovation labs in Porto, from the fields of Alentejo to the football pitches of glory, Portugal is crafting a new future, one that does not erase history but makes peace with it. In the next few minutes, you will discover how a small country, often overlooked, is becoming a lighthouse for a new kind of prosperity. A prosperity of meaning, of balance, of beauty. Let us begin where all Portuguese stories begin, with a ball, a song, and a storm that changed everything. April 7th, 2025, the Estadio da Luz trembled not from fear, but from a roar that shook the continent. Portugal had done it again. In a showdown few expected, Portugal claimed their second UEFA Nations League title, defeating a formidable French side in a penalty shootout that will be etched into history books and the hearts of a nation. João Neves, just 20 years old, stood over the final ball. The stadium held its breath. He scored. And with that kick, Portugal didn't just win a trophy. It won back belief. This wasn't just about football. It was a symphony of redemption. After years of doubting whether the golden age had passed, post-Ronaldo, post-2016, Portugal declared, "We are not finished. We are evolving." Bruno Fernandes led like a general. Diogo Costa made saves that seemed impossible. Young bloods like Francisco Conceição and Antonio Silva played with fire. The soul of Figo, the craft of Deco, the intensity of Pepe, all reborn. More than sport, this victory had economic consequences. Lisbon's bars were full for days. Tourism surged. Booking.com reported a 24% spike in Portugal searches within 48 hours. Cafés reopened. Hotels in Porto lit up blue and green. And beyond the economics was something deeper: national confidence. In a Europe fractured by division, Portugal reminded its people and its neighbors what unity felt like. Children painted flags on their cheeks again. Elderly war veterans wept in Fatima. Schools played the national anthem at every assembly. And yes, just for a moment, the world watched, not America, not China, not Berlin, but Lisbon. In the streets of Alfama, an old voice rose with modern urgency. It was Fado, Portugal's eternal cry. But this time it was digital, sampled, remixed, woven into urban beats. 2025 saw a surge of creative revival. Lisbon's youth, armed with AI tools and ancestral grief, crafted a renaissance that stunned the world. Fado singers now perform with holographic backing choirs. Culinary students reinvent pastel de nata with saffron and algae cream. Street art climbs tiled walls, blending Moorish geometry with crypto culture. Portugal didn't forget tradition. It evolved it. Cascais became the new art capital of Europe. Once a sleepy fishing town, now home to residencies for painters, musicians, and climate poets. Meanwhile, UNESCO added the Porto Évora Covilhã cultural rail line to its list of intangible heritages, a moving museum of design, language, and shared memory. In 2025, every pastel de nata wasn't just a pastry. It was a symbol, soft, bold, imperfect, and unforgettable. But paradise has a price. Lisbon, once Europe's affordable gem, now dances with the ghosts of gentrification. In 2025, The average rent in Bairro Alto reached 1,800 euros, a 70% rise in just 3 years. So why are people still coming? Because Portugal offers something numbers cannot measure. The pace of life here invites breath, not burnout. The sun touches your skin 280 days a year. You can buy espresso for €1 while discussing Kant or climate change with your neighbor. Yes, housing is hard, but healthcare? Public, efficient. Yes, wages are modest, but safety? Among the highest in Europe. Thousands of Americans now call Portugal home, not for riches, but for rhythm. The New York Times called it the world's healthiest escape. But tensions are real. Locals protest. Signs read, Lisboa não é à venda. Lisbon is not for sale. The government responded with smart rent control zones and a foreign property tax. 2025 is the year Portugal tried to balance two truths, that it must remain open but never hollowed. In March 2025, an unexpected storm struck. The United States, amid a trade realignment, slapped a 15% tariff on European wines, olive oils, and solar tech. Portugal, heavily invested in these exports, was hit hard. The wine industry lost 400 million euros in projected revenue in a single quarter. Alentejo vineyards cut staff. Solar panels stacked up in warehouses. But Portugal did not wait. Prime Minister Mariana Veloso, young, fierce, and fluent in 6 languages, unveiled the Green Acceleration Act. It redirected funds to African and Brazilian markets, tripled internal solar adoption incentives, and poured investment into agritech. The finance ministry also... Portugal doesn't build its future on concrete, but on cork, sun, and soul. By 2025, 77% of its national electricity came from renewables. Wind turbines pepper Serra da Estrela. Solar grids dance on rooftops in the Algarve. But the real story is how tradition meets tech. Lisbon's AI hubs now collaborate with shepherds in Trás-os-Montes to optimize pasture rotation. Drones fly over Douro vineyards to predict grape rot. Blockchain verifies the purity of local honey. Meanwhile, Nova AI Campus became Europe's fastest-growing startup ecosystem, attracting thinkers from Ghana, Germany, and Jakarta. But unlike Silicon Valley, Portugal keeps a human face on its tech. Each app must meet a community standard, judged not just by engineers, but by poets, elders, and ethicists. The result? A digital economy that feels, dare we say it, alive. Portugal's superpower is not growth, it's togetherness. When Lisbon thrives, it sings in Bragança. When floods hit Madeira, families in Porto donate groceries before the state even asks. In 2025, the urban-rural gap narrowed, not in income, but in dignity. The National Railway now connects even tiny hamlets. Digital centers were placed in mountain villages. Grandparents video chat with Lisbon cousins. Old schoolhouses became AI learning pods. And the diaspora, millions strong, have returned. If not with bodies, then with capital and care. In a world breaking apart, Portugal stitches itself closer. So, what does Portugal teach us? That a small country, often ignored in headlines, can lead in meaning. That traditions are not weights, they are wings, when woven with modern breath. That football is not a game, but a gospel. That cafés, sunlight, and simple joys are not luxuries, but necessities in an age of burnout. As we close part 1 of this journey, we leave Portugal not as a postcard, but as a parable. A story of light, a story of roots, a story not of escape, but of return. We'll venture deeper into Portugal's African connections, its underreported leadership in ocean tech, and how the nation is writing the next chapter of global resilience. Until then, let the guitar hum, let the sun rise over the Azulejo walls, let the world learn from Portugal. In the north, where terraced vineyards of the Douro Valley once whispered only to barrels of aged port, a new kind of spirit is fermenting. One not in oak casks, but in co-working spaces, coding hubs, and decentralized data farms. Yes, Porto, the city of wine and wistful melancholy, is now being rebranded by Gen Z entrepreneurs as the gentle brain of Europe. In 2025, more than 300 AI startups are registered in the greater Porto region, many of them born in the shadow of centuries-old stone. The University of Porto's AI and Ethics Lab, which gained global fame after predicting the 2023 EV battery shortage, is now partnering with Stanford and ETH Zurich. Their mission? To create the world's most ethical, low-carbon AI models. One such model, GaiaNet, is now powering eco-cities in 5 continents. Yet this isn't Silicon Valley 2.0. It's more thoughtful, more sustainable. People bike to code. Coders take Fado breaks. Developers use lunch to debate Plato or Pessoa. Here, philosophy and programming coexist, not as opposites, but as pillars of a future Portugal refuses to rush. In California, we move fast and break things. In Portugal, we move wisely and mend the soul. Ana Duarte, founder of Cynthia.labs. In the Algarve, the sun still dazzles like a golden coin thrown upon the sea. But the selfie stick tourists of the 2010s? Gone. In their place, curious minds, quiet seekers, environmental volunteers. Since 2024, Portugal's tourism strategy has shifted. No longer chasing mass influx, the country bets on slow economy, where visitors stay longer, spend deeper, and connect truly. In Alentejo, travelers now live on olive farms, harvesting with locals and sharing stories beneath cork oaks under stars. In Setúbal, retired American doctors volunteer at clinics, exchanging care for culture. And on the once crowded streets of Lisbon, smart tourism systems now limit cruise ship influx, redirecting visitors toward overlooked inland gems. Revenue from deep travel rose 12% in 2024, even as tourist numbers dropped 8%. And with this comes a spiritual shift. Portugal becomes not a destination, but an experience, one that nourishes the traveler and protects the host. Lisbon, April 2025. Inside the newly built Atlantic Academy of Languages, students from Mozambique, Brazil, Angola, and East Timor gather to learn. But not just Portuguese. Here they study diplomacy, sustainable energy, and peace building in 4 languages across 4 continents. Portugal, often overlooked on the global stage, is quietly becoming a soft power superhub. Its greatest export is no longer cork or codfish, but education and connection. Since the 2020, this isn't nostalgia for empire. It's something far braver. A post-colonial reimagining of global equity, where Portugal builds bridges, not borders, through knowledge. Portugal's true power lies not in its past conquests, but in its current compassion. Dr. Emmanuel Tavares, Atlantic Academy Rector. Yeah, the Atlantic Ocean, once the path of conquest and discovery, now becomes a corridor of energy and defense. In April 2025, a historic deal was signed in Lisbon, the Atlantic Energy Pact, a trilateral agreement between Portugal, the US, and Morocco, linking their offshore wind grids into the largest subsea clean energy system in the hemisphere. Floating turbines off Nazaré now power data centers in North Carolina. Surplus electricity flows to Tangier, where African semiconductor plants now buzz with life. This is no fantasy. It's geopolitical choreography conducted by Portugal with grace and vision. But energy isn't the only asset. The Portuguese Navy, once in decline, has been reborn as a key NATO player, focusing on undersea cable security and climate response missions. Their new fleet, powered by hydrogen, crewed by multilingual women, monitored by AI. Portugal has reclaimed its maritime soul, not to dominate the world, but to help protect it. At a time when much of Europe is fracturing over migration, identity, and inequality, Portugal in 2025 offers a rare model, integration without assimilation. With one of Europe's most diverse youth populations, 28% of Lisbon's under-25s are of mixed or immigrant background. Portugal has defied the clash of cultures narrative. How? With neighborhood councils that include African grandmothers, Pakistani grocers, and Portuguese poets. With national TV that airs Cape Verdean telenovelas and Ukrainian jazz. And with policies that fund local voices instead of abstract agendas. Crime? Down. Trust in government? Steady. Birth rates? The only rising ones in Southern Europe. Sociologists call it the Portuguese gradient. Slow, inclusive, rooted in real community, a model even Scandinavian think tanks now study. Portugal didn't erase differences, it listened to them. Nyla Costa, Lisbon social worker. In the fading light over the Azores, where the sea kisses cloud and volcano alike, Portugal in 2025 is no longer just a country. It is a compass, a small nation that says, you can be modern without being loud. That strength isn't in scale, but in soul. This is the Portugal of wind and wine, of satellites and saudade, of hard data and soft voices. A nation that remembers, but never retreats. Perhaps the future doesn't need empires or explosions. Perhaps it just needs a place like Portugal to remind us who we are. Portugal didn't roar, it whispered, and the world finally listened. If this story stirred you, don't just watch, share it. Let's rediscover how small nations can still dream big. Subscribe now for more global stories that matter.